everybody. We're back for episode 4 of Movie Mainline. So we are now a finely tuned machine. I just lied as Luis was laughed because he knows that's not the truth. I am joined by my betters again, Luis Lacau. Hello, Luis. Luis, you have a big segment this week, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be repping my people, like my peeps in Miami. I gotta represent the Cuban pride over here, so I'm gonna be doing Cuban films this week.
Would me, brucepurkey, and ericholmes, how would we fit in within Miami? Who would fit in the best, Luis?
I think Eric, honestly, I think you would fit in so perfect in there, dude.
I do party.
Yeah.
So what Luis is saying, Bruce, is that you and I are both pariahs. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I'm used to it. It's okay.
You know what Bruce Purkey is also used to? He's now used to interviewing filmmakers and people. I'm assuming that might have been one of your first interviews. Who did you interview? Or maybe you've been interviewing people all your life. I could be wrong.
I've interviewed a few like music related people, not very many, but I never interviewed anyone in the film realm. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is the first week. Last several days, Bruce Purkey, he saw the new movie, The Painter and the Thief, and he interviewed this really interesting artist. We're going to talk a little bit about that and this. And we're also, me and Bruce, we're going to talk about, we both saw The Painter and the Thief. So we're going to have our reactions regarding that film. And, I was listening, Bruce, to some of your interview, and you are, again, I said this before we started, you're already a better interviewer than me. By the way, not a very high bar to clear. Okay, so Eric, that's a half compliment, half negatory thing towards me. Ericholmes, you have 4 movies this week. Are they all really, really exciting and good?
I love all 4 of them.
Wow. That little spoiler, folks, that means Ericholmes actually loves Capone, which I have been getting a little bit of blowback the last week regarding my unabashed love for...
I will totally defend Capone. All my movies, I love all of them, and they're all 4-star movies.
All 4-star
You're starting
movies.
to sound like Greg now.
Okay, as we move on I'm just kidding. Yeah, I folks, if you don't know me from everything I do, I do tend to 4-star every single living thing under the sun.
Greg.
And you know what, folks? I want to tell you this. I have been a horrible moderator. This podcast is hosted by Ericholmes, Luis Lacau, Bruce Purkey. I'm just a moderator. This is how bad a moderator I am. One of my friends, Anderson Cowan, he also does podcasting. He's a filmmaker, directed Groupers. He actually, friendly way criticized me, saying, "You know what? You've been really pronouncing Luis's name wrong, and you've known him for several years." I go, "What?" Well, his name's Luis. And I go, he never told me. He goes, well, like you, he's very nice and considerate. So I would suggest you pronounce him Luis. So I apologize, Luis. Everyone calls him Luis.
You know what? It's either way, man. It's either way. Luis. My cousin that's known me his whole life calls me Luis. It flows out of the tongue better than Luis.
Okay, both. I disagree. I think both flow out of tongue very well. I just get confused on which road to take. Like in my life, I don't know which road to take. But
I do enjoy that movie Thelma and Louise, though. That was a good
Yeah.
Don't. But by the way, spoiler alert: do not go off the cliff. You're going to be fine.
They drive off to Florida. They,
we don't have cliffs here.
Yeah. Right. One of these days we're gonna have to do some kind of remote in Miami. Once Movie Mainline goes up to the next level, we're gonna visit each of our respective locales and do remotes. How's that? Is that a good idea? Yeah, Eric.
Yeah. I don't know what that means, but I'm down.
Yeah, remotes. We'll do podcasts in each of our locations once this whole COVID thing is over.
Oh, that'll be tight. You guys gotta come over and party.
I can take you.
We ain't gonna record shit because we're gonna party too hard and forget, but it'll be fun.
Well, speaking of fun, I have, before we get to our movie picks, I'm gonna do a little bit of a movie rewind, movie mainline rewind first. Okay. Does anyone have any rewind picks that they watch each other's movies? Because if there's a no, I have a little bit of a rewind remix. This is movie mainline rewind is when we actually recommend films the previous week, and then one of us four, and hopefully more down the road, you listeners will chime in on movies that are
Cue the badass music.
Yes, cue the badass music, right?
Mainline rewind, wiki whack. Mainline rewind, we're coming back to review
we
the
coming
same
back.
movie that we did before. We're coming in your ears and dropping to the floor.
That is amazing.
Dude, I am mixing that in with Bruce's son's music. That is going in there.
I did win the rap battle once, just so you know.
So there really isn't a movie mainline rewind this week, but I will do a quasi pick, and it's a mea culpa from last week, because I listened back to our show and we were talking about Hardline, with a rock group, a hair metal band that Eric Holmes was so kind when he was doing his deep dive on Brandon Lee's filmography and films. Rapid fire, they did maybe a couple of tunes, and I listened, and Eric Holmes said they gave us a free CD single, or maybe a free CD of the album, but I think a CD single.
Oh no, it was a cassette tape.
And you said you wore the tape.
Yourself, brother.
You said you wore the tape out, and then I threw in a knock. I think I made fun of the band. So what happened? That's fine. But what I wanted to say before we get into our movie picks, I was on Spotify this morning walking around, and I decided to listen to Hardline. They are still going strong. They just came out with a live album earlier this year, and I listened to like maybe 10 of their tracks. So that live album, it starts off one track that the singer says 1992, and it just goes right into a rock song. And that's just the way I want, man. It's a throwback. It's throwback. And I'm going to agree with you, Eric Holmes. I apologize to Hardline fans. Their Facebook is Hardline Rocks. And no sarcasm. I suggest Luis, I'm going to call you Luis. I just decided. Luis and Bruce, make sure you listen to next week. Then the rewind homework for you guys and everyone who's listening. Take a listen to Hardline, not just then, but now, and tell me what you think of their music.
I checked it out when I think it was, I forgot who posted it on the Movie Mainline Facebook group. I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And I was listening to that while doing the last podcast. So all I hear is a guy talking about Jesus and Christ, and then hearing this music, it was such an awesome juxtaposition.
Speaking of a juxtaposition, I'm horrible with transitions. We're going to start off with Eric Holmes for his first couple of picks from last week. What have you been watching? What comes off the top of your head, sir?
Well, I will start with the newest one that I saw. My friend Aaron Kessler suggested I watch this. It's from 2019, directed by Joe Begos, Begos. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the movie is called VFW. It's got George Wendt. It's got what the fuck is his name? Stephen Lang from the Avatar movies. It's got Fred Williamson. It's pretty much a siege movie. A bunch of old army guys from Vietnam, and one was from the Korean War, and they're on this VFW, and it cuts. They're hanging out, and it cuts away to this girl. And she's she steals a package from this drug lord. A drug lord lives in this house, kind of similar to what you would see in The Raid, where a bunch of druggies and destitutes live in one building. Well, she grabs a package with, you find out later it's a bunch of drugs, and then she makes her way to the VFW. And then a bunch of people that are all drugged out because they know that if they capture her, they will get free drugs, and they're all about it. And they're essentially like zombies. They're not zombies, they're just people, but I mean, it's, for better or worse, it's a zombie movie. Zombie siege movie, and the people in the VFW are wondering what the fuck's going on, and a bunch of violence and fucking shootouts, and it's good stuff.
What's the movie Fred Williamson was in? That the big one that he's considered, is it
You would know him best
Shaft?
in
Not Shaft. Was he Shaft?
Dust Till Dawn.
Okay, Fred Williams. Okay.
And then Boss. We'll just call it Boss. I'm not going to say the second word.
Okay.
But yeah, Fred Williamson. He's a big blaxploitation actor from back in the day. But yeah, most people would know him as the guy smoking the cigar in Dust Till Dawn.
What was 3 the Hard Way?
William Sadler's in it. William Sadler.
Great, yeah. Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, and all of Frank Darabont's movies. William Sadler. I really want to give this away, but I will not give this away. I will say that William Sadler has the greatest character introduction in any movie you will ever see.
Whoa.
He literally just pops up out of nowhere, and I was not expecting it. I was like, that's freaking hilarious.
I'm intrigued now.
It sounds like a movie that would have Rutger Hauer in it if he was still alive.
Yeah, it definitely would. Who else is in it? It's the Warriors come out and play. That guy. It's pretty much just loaded with that guy. It's Martin Cove, Kreese from Karate Kid. He's in it. It's pretty much the whole cast is a bunch of that guys.
Yeah,
that guys.
Yeah, and
that
VFW
in that movie.
What's that?
That guy, those guys that you've seen in that movie, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's all of them. Well, 5 of them. But yeah, it's real funny. The character interactions is really well. I want to point out the writers, Mark Brallier and Matthew McArdle were the writers of this movie. As far as I know, this was the first movie they did. I think Matthew McArdle did maybe like a short or something else prior to that. But the dialogue between the characters is really clever, but not like, not too clever. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When people are talking kind of writerly. No, they sound like old war buddies that are taking the piss out of each other. And it's funny. The action gets a little too shaky cam for me at the end, but that's really my only critique on the whole thing. It's fun and it's bloody and it's awesome. And if you want to have a good time, watch VFW.
David Patrick Kelly is the name from
there you
the
go.
Warriors.
That guy. Yeah.
And yes, it also stars Sierra McCormick as this character named Lizard.
Her name's Elizabeth, but her nickname's Lizard.
That makes sense.
This sounds like a really interesting. Wait, was this a rental streaming or?
It was on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon, rent it on there. And, I assume if you can rent it on Amazon, you can rent it anywhere. It came out. It came out last year, and I didn't know about it till my friend Aaron told me about it. He's like, dude, you got to check this out. You would love this. And he was not wrong. I fucking loved it.
I've seen the poster for it popping up a few times. I've been curious about it. So.
Yeah, Stephen Lang. I was looking at Stephen Lang's filmography just recently, 4 or 5 years ago. He was so awesome as the blind man in Don't Breathe.
Yeah, Stephen Lang's great, especially in this. He's kind of the guy that holds it. Like he owns the VFW bar. He's the guy that kind of holds everything together. But
that makes sense.
Like I didn't know. Like I've seen movies he was in, but I didn't notice him until I saw him as the sergeant guy in Avatar. Yeah, and ever since then, dude, Stephen Lang is great. Like in everything.
Did Martin?
I don't know how he does it.
Did Martin Cove in The Karate Kid say "sweep the leg" to?
Yeah.
Okay, I interviewed Martin Cove years ago, 1-on-1, and I think he brought his kid with him. Greatest guy. I forgot it was for an indie film, and I didn't ask, but he actually autographed a picture of him from Karate Kid, and he just signed it, Martin Cove, sweep the leg.
You should.
It's all of them, dude. That's how he signs all of them. I actually got a chance to meet him at SuperCon a couple of years ago for when they started doing Cobra Kai on YouTube Red, and the guy is a sweetheart, dude. He gave instead of handshakes and all that stuff, he gave a person a hug whenever he met him and all that stuff. He was a real trip.
That is so cool. Sweep the leg.
You should have got have him sign "sweep the leg," or he just signs the "sweep the leg," hands it to you, and just look at it all disappointed and go. I didn't ask you to write that. just to be a dick. And then immediately apologize. Say, I'm sorry.
Dude, I think the funniest thing somebody actually wrote on an autograph, because I collect autographs, so I'm always getting weird shit. And mine was John Barrowman from Doctor Who and Arrow and all these others. He wrote, "I like your dick," because I was in a
Wow.
I was in a Clockwork Orange cosplay, so I had the face mask with the dick on it, and he was like, "I like your dick."
Wow, that is very cool.
My favorite one was I went to like Comic-Con here, and Judge Reinhold was there, so I had him sign my Gremlins record, and he wrote, "Come on, we're talking cable."
You know, I don't know the joke. Again, I'm sorry, Eric. I've still have not seen Gremlins, and it's just it's probably a big reason why I'm a moderator here, and I'm not a full-fledged member of Movie Mainline. So I'm sorry, Eric. That they laughed at the joke because I'm so left out of this.
It's one of the greatest pickup lines in movie history. But go on.
Yes, Luis. You have a big segment, so I don't know. Do you want to take over this next segment, or do a little bit of a?
We'll do a little bit and a little bit. That way we could switch back and forth, and then at the end I'll do like a lightning round of the last few. What I'll do is actually go in order of when these movies are basically taking place, I guess you could say. And the first one is called Buena Vista Social Club, Adios, which is streaming on Amazon Prime. And if you're into like Afro-Cuban, or it's kind of like fusion jazz mixed in with Afro-Cuban voice, and it's basically that raspy black voice that's the singer, and it is a glorious band from the 1940s. It's a throwback band to the 1940s and 50s, and basically Afro-Cuban music was the most prominent music of that time in Cuba. That's where all the clubs were. They were all Afro-Cuban bands. It's basically, imagine if you mix salsa with jazz, with like dark jazz, and then with that raspy singing, and it does like an interesting mixture. And this is right up there. This documentary follows this one band that was one of the most prominent Cuban bands known. And like I remember getting raised by it, like listening to the music and all that stuff on tapes and all that my dad had, and like he had pictures with the band from Cuba and all that stuff. And it was just very interesting seeing the documentary with actual footage of the band.
Oh wow,
which was really cool. And they start going into like scenery and everything like that of Cuba, which is very fascinating. Anybody that's interested in learning the history of Cuba, this is going to be a good episode for you, because we'll go into a little bit of that too. But yeah, that's a really good one if you're into Afro-Cuban music or any type of jazz music.
So Buena Vista Social Club.
Yeah.
Now, is that a sequel though? Is that, you said Adios?
Yes.
So was Buena Vista Social Club was the first one, right? Or is that, am I imagining that?
Buena Vista Social Club was the name of the band, and then the documentary just adds Adios at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know I've heard about Buena Vista Social Club like forever. So
yeah, they've been around for a long time.
That is weird. Yeah,
how old is it? How old?
That one is the documentary is, I think. Oh, I didn't write it on there.
I think it was
early 2000s. The documentary 2000s.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I remember Wim Wenders. He wrote and directed. Was that the one with Compay Segundo and Ibrahim Ferrer? And yeah, I used to love that music. When that documentary was released, I put their CD on spin all the time.
And it's just really good music. It's chill music. It's very much like if you're into alternative jazz, it's something that you could just chill to, put it on in the background, drive around, especially if you live in like a tropical area. That music just, it hits that perfect spot for that. And you get to see all the sceneries, and documentaries actually goes into like the story of these people, how they came together, how they actually came to be. And it's very interesting. And they play most of the music, which is awesome.
The music is just life affirming, and
Yeah.
you know what's great about that music. Not like I'm an expert, but when I was really into that music, you never get tired of it. You just never
No.
really get tired of that music. It's beautiful.
No.
It's beautiful music, and I'm gonna name drop. Every single episode I do the name dropping thing. I did interview Wim Wenders several years ago.
Wow.
He did this film called Salt of the Earth. So he wrote and directed Buena Vista Social Club, at least that documentary. And one of the nicest people I've ever. I thought he was going to be a complete jerk because he's the man, but he's just a sweet, nice, just insightful filmmaker.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's cool. That is number one from your Cuban
That's number
segment.
one.
Okay,
Yep.
number one. Bruce, what do you got? What are you going to lead with?
I think I'm going to lead with The Death of Dick Long. So, I don't know how many people here have seen The Death of Dick Long. A24 release from the fall, but it just got a very limited release. I think just kind of an art house release. And now it's been available, I think now streaming video on demand, I should say, for the last month or so. And by the time I rented it was only about $1, so it's got to be coming out soon, probably on some platforms as well.
It's on VOD already. I think it's if you I could put a link actually to a group of people that actually sell you the actual full video for $5. So
yeah, it's pretty reasonable. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun. I'll just give you kind of the basic concept. It's pretty simple. It takes place in Alabama, which I struck into. I live in Alabama, and I didn't know at the beginning it was in Alabama, and I started watching. I'm like, wow, this looks a lot like Alabama. And it kind of stereotypes a little bit. I mean, just the same way as Fargo kind of stereotypes people there, that kind of the local yokel kind of attitude. But it's fun in that way. But anyway, the basic concept is you got a bunch of dudes there partying on a weeknight, fireworks, drinking, just way too rowdy and on a working night, and it kind of fades out from that. And the next shot is just a snap cut to them. The two guys are driving like crazy. Their friend is bleeding in the back, apparently dying, and they dump him off in front of an emergency room entrance and speed away. And then within like 5 minutes, this is not a spoiler, they find out and you find out that he's died. And probably about the first half is them trying to, in bumbling ways, cover up that they have any involvement with him because they think they're going to get in trouble. And as that's going on, you're slowly discovering how Dick Long died. Yeah. And then it goes from there. And it's very, very character driven. A couple of great performances in this as well. The lead actor who plays Zeke, I have to look up his name.
This feels like a movie that is right up Eric Holmes' alley. I think The Death of Dick Long would be.
Have you seen it, Eric?
I've seen a version of that on Pornhub, but not the one you're referring to.
Let's just say
it's really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh, yeah. I've seen it a couple times.
At least partway through.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 2 minutes at a time.
I was going to say Eric Holmes was locked and loaded for that joke, but then he's going to make another joke about being locked and loaded. So I'm like...
Yeah.
So anyway, all I would say is it's I'd say it gets better as it goes to me. Yeah. I mean, the setup's really interesting and it kind of drags you in. The characters are definitely fun, super dark comedy. You have to be able to go with kind of that jet black, like disturbing comedy. But if you can go down those lines, and I once again, I mean, everyone's comparing it to Fargo, but I mean, I think if you can get into that Coen Brothers style of universe,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I think you'd go right along with this, and the characters are all fun. I mean, they're fun to watch without it having the kind of mysterious aspect to it. And I think the second half of the movie gets a little more serious, but also it kind of ramps up the tension. And the tension is really interesting to me because in a lot of movies like that, the tension is like, who done it? Or, how are they going to get away with this? But in here, the tension is, it's going to get found out. So it's just like, what is going to happen when people find out? And how are they going to like blow it? Because these guys, there's no way they're going to like succeed in hiding this all the way through. So it's a lot of fun. It's a good movie.
It's like a 4-star film for you, Bruce.
Yeah, I'd say it's about 4 star. I mean, it doesn't quite transcend into classic status. But I mean, it's a lot of fun for this kind of movie, and I think that people who are into that kind of style, I would have a lot of fun with this, and kind of find it as a kind of a hidden gem. I think for a lot of people that maybe have never heard of it. So,
Louis, do you think this is a kind of a hidden gem, The Death of Dick Long? Because that movie came out and okay.
It definitely is. This is one of those that I saw it the first time and I was like, I told the fiance, I was like, dude, we got to watch this because she loves her crime thrillers and like that type of film. And she was like totally absorbed by it. So yeah, this is definitely one that you got to watch. And it is very Coen Brothers-esque. It has that feel to it. It has that kind of like, you don't know what's going on until the very end. You don't know what's fully going to happen until the very end because shit could get real quick.
That's cool. So I definitely have to check that out. Now we are going to Eric Holmes. What else do you have, sir?
All right. Well, I don't know. You want to go old or you want to go new?
I am old myself, so let's go old.
All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to a 1985 Larry Cohen movie, The Stuff.
yes.
Have you seen The Stuff?
I have not. Is Larry Cohen the guy who wrote the script, or was he the subject of the documentary King Cohen?
No.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay.
I was almost going to do that this week too, but
King Cohen is great.
Okay.
But yeah, I the kids, my niece and nephews like to watch horror movies, and I found The Stuff. I think it was playing on Amazon, and I put it on, thinking, well, they'll watch it, get bored, and but no, they were locked in. The Stuff is basically this old guy. They're in this rock quarry, and they find this white stuff bubbling out of the ground. And as you do, the guy reaches down, puts some on his finger, and tastes it. It's like, wow, this is pretty good. And then grabs a handful and starts eating it. And some guy comes up behind you and goes, dude, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, it tastes good. Check it out. And he's like, well, okay then. And then he tastes some. Nick, cut to a couple of years later, and they have packaged it and sell it as like a yogurt or a dessert food. And what happens is people buy the stuff and they eat it, and everyone loves it. It's almost like a drug to them. And eventually the stuff gets in their body and overtakes their body to the point where they're no longer human. They become like a human shell, but they're the stuff on the inside. And one kid finds out, he goes in for a midnight snack and sees some stuff like knocked over in the fridge. And he opens the fridge and the stuff is kind of like moving around. And he's like, what the fuck is that? He closes the door, and the next day, the mom takes it out and it's like, yeah, look hungry. You want some stuff? And he's like, I'm not eating that. That was moving. And there's another guy, he follows him, and he works for some government agency, like a FDA sort of thing. And he's got an idea that this stuff that they're selling, he wants to find out what it is. And, it's like, oh, it's our secret formula, like Coca-Cola, but he ain't buying it. And so that's kind of, it gets a little weird. But the kids loved it. I love it. The effects are from 1985. They're cheesy, but god damn, they're fun and kind of creepy. There's something weird about seeing like a practical effect of like a head where the mouth just goes open real wide. It's fake, but somehow it looks kind of real, almost grotesque. But yeah, there's just something weird about it. I love the movie. Holds up, like is a satire on, I don't know, it's probably fucking satire on something, I'm sure.
Consumerism, maybe? I don't know.
Sure, why not? Yeah, it's satire. It's consumerism. Go ahead.
That Cohen documentary is amazing to see all the stuff he did. Have you seen Q the Winged Serpent?
No.
I've never seen it.
I might be the only person seen it in the theater. Q the Winged Serpent would be another one I'd check out by his, or Alligator. But Q the Winged Serpent it's got great, like, it's 80s too. And it's got, what's his name? Michael Moriarty? Is that
Michael
his name?
Moriarty, yeah.
Okay. And that's actually
And
streaming on Shutter. I've seen it on Shutter.
Cue the
I'm
Winged
pretty
Serpent
sure.
is cheesy greatness. And if you watch King Cohen, which maybe you have, Eric, I don't know if you watched King Cohen, they talk about how
Yeah,
Never
go
seen
he
ahead.
did a lot of guerrilla filmmaking. And when he was doing Q the Winged Serpent, at one point, there's supposed to be, it's kind of King Kongish at one point, where the Winged Serpent is on a skyscraper and they're supposed to be shooting like machine guns at it. And I think at the time, he just got like fake machine guns and was shooting them around New York. And the cops were getting called and all kinds of, it's just, he did some really crazy shit. And he started out with like blaxploitation movies. And he was doing crazy shit then too, where you just have people like, we need to have somebody like riding on a car while it's speeding away. And he would just have somebody riding on a car while it's speeding away, like the star. So it's quite entertaining to see this guy. He's kind of an unsung underground hero. He's really, really interesting.
I actually got to watch Q the Winged Serpent because now that you're describing it, it sounds familiar. But yeah.
It's cheesy, but it's great. And the character of that Michael Moriarty plays is really a really great New York character, way too good for a movie like that. And his character elevates that movie entertainment status by like 50%. So
Yeah. Is that going to count as a mainline rewind if I do that one next week?
Yeah, seriously.
Sure.
Of course,
Sweet.
of course.
The documentary is actually streaming on Shutter as well. So both of the movies, both the actual movie itself
Yeah.
and the documentaries on there.
Cool. Lewis, why don't we get another Cuban pick from you? Cuban
right.
cinema.
So the next one that I want to do is actually the Cuba Libre story. It's actually streaming on Netflix, and this is a docu-series. But the way that they do this, it is informative. It goes from the Batista era, which was the dictator that took over Cuba and kind of overthrew the republic that was there. And then it goes into Castro and the uprising that Castro actually did, the way he did it, and how he was able to kind of basically lie to the people and basically say all these things and kind of like trick everybody, the whole population, to basically go and support him. And it's very interesting because it goes into the factions of the revolution and how his faction became the top faction. And it's a lot of cool politics. If you're into foreign politics and history in particular, this is something that you'll definitely watch and absorb. It's really well done, really well shot, and it has actual stock footage from that era, which is really cool.
The Cuba Libre story.
The Cuba Libre story, yeah. And I think it's a 6-part series. It came out last year, and it's well worth it. They also play a lot of good music throughout, and it's typical Cuban music. So that was actually really cool and nice little touch to it.
So it's engrossing from the get-go. It just pulls you right in.
It really does. It's one of those series that, you know how Netflix is really good about their docuseries? This is probably one of the better ones, honestly, that I've seen.
Speaking of documentaries, there's a film that Bruce and I saw that comes out on Hulu. By the time you guys are listening to this, and you may have already seen this on Hulu. It's on Hulu VOD virtual cinemas, meaning virtual cinemas and drive-ins. It's this movie. It's this documentary called The Painter and the Thief.
Mm-hmm.
If you even just watch anyone who watches the trailer to The Painter and the Thief will be automatically hooked, because first of all, this is one of these things are stranger than fiction. This is just one of the most strangest stories I've ever seen. It's this Czech artist. Her name is Barbara. I forgot her last name, Bruce, but
Crystal Kova.
Okay, Crystal Kova, yeah. And she moved from she's a Czech artist. She moved to Norway, right? She moved to Norway.
She was a Czech artist. She was living in Berlin. She broke up with her then boyfriend to go with a new boyfriend who was a Norwegian, and she moved to Oslo.
Okay. So what happened is she's trying to start off her career. She has couple of paintings at this gallery, and they're both stolen. And one of them is, I think, the centerpiece of her work, this swan, right? The swan.
Swan song.
Yeah, swan song. Yeah. And it's stolen. And instead of actually, like any normal human being, just making sure the crooks, the thieves, get thrown in jail for an inordinate amount of time, she decides, actually, there's footage of it. She's at the hearing of one of the criminals. Actually, they were both criminals, but one of the criminals, Bertil, Bertil, she was so captivated by his presence. I think, if I recall, Bruce, she said it right there that she wanted to actually paint a portrait of him, right? At the
Yeah, well, in the movie, it's kind of a little bit obscure. You're not sure, because in the movie, basically, what happens is you see there's footage of them stealing it, so they know who the thieves are, and then they don't have the documentary crew there when she's at the courtroom. They only have like drawings of her,
right,
and
which
then
she
they have,
did.
like, audio, and in audio, she's saying something to her friend like, "Do you think I should go up and talk to him?" or something like that. So when I interviewed her, I asked her, I said, "Well, what was your impulse, or when did you decide?" and all that stuff. And she had actually decided when she went there, she was going to ask both of them if they would sit for her to paint them. So that was kind of my first question to her, was like, well, what was your impulse to, instead of just, like you said, like wanting to, get her stuff back and get them in jail. Her thought was like, I'm going to go out, reach out and connect to these guys. And the one guy isn't there at all, but that Bertil guy is.
Yeah.
And then that's the beginning of the 3-year story.
Yeah. It's directed by this guy named Benjamin Ree. And he, like Bruce said, he spent 3 years just capturing their lives. And it's one of these things where it's actually not, there are so many life-changing things that I don't even want to talk about within the next 3 years. It's actually covered I'm sure in the trailer. What happens to Bertil is just really harrowing. And there's times when you're going to be pulling for the thief and his side of the story. And then there are times when you're going to be pulling for the artist. The reason why it's called The Painter and the Thief is this documentary is set as, in a way, even though they come together as friends, a lot of it is framed as two stories. You see both sides of the coin, and your loyalty sometimes shifts from one to the other. At least that's how I perceived it. And ultimately, it ends up being a really satisfying and very compelling documentary. I'm not going to talk about the finale, but it wraps everything together in a perfect package. So, anyways, Bruce, what did you think of the film?
Very similar. I was drawn. What was really interesting about it too was, I think you see both sides kind of assuming they understand what the other person's motives are, but then also being suspicious of the other person.
Right.
And you see that, like you said, that fluctuates over time. The way they relate to each other and the way they think of each other really changes quite a bit. And I was struck throughout this movie. This is a very rare documentary where access, of course, is always a big thing in documentary, right? And interesting arcs and interesting stories to tell. This is one of the very rare ones where it's a super focused, personal kind of a vision of two people that honestly never knew each other before, and how they connect and don't connect. And I was thinking as I was watching it, this would be one of those things almost like the 7-Up series, like we were talking about before.
Right.
This could be like a 7-Up series. I could imagine a documentary being made 10 years from now, revisiting both of them and seeing where they're at, and 10 more years and seeing where they're at, because you get enough changes in their lives over these 3 years that it's really compelling and makes you interested in both of their lives. And it's funny, if you go to their Facebook pages now, you can see how recently this movie ends. Like the things that you see at the end of this movie are very recent, like within like 8 months, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
and you can see the things on their Facebook pages, that they were talking about.
Go ahead. Oh, just to pull you guys in as far as to watch this documentary, I'm going to actually spoil a couple things. But one of the things that you're going to realize, if you haven't seen, I forgot what, Bruce, the name of the that invasion movie by How to Invade Next or something, the Michael Moore film. He talked about the prisons in Norway.
Where to Invade Next or something like that. Yeah.
They shot in the exact same prison in this film, and you get to see how Bertil lives for about a year, and it's very humane the way the prisons. If you haven't seen that Moore film, you can see how that jail, I forgot the name of the prison, is actually structured. It looks like he's living in a studio apartment with a room or whatnot. It's just
compared to American prisons, it's pretty darn nice.
It's pretty darn nice. Another thing
outside the window. I mean,
yeah, and he's a drug addict, okay? And there's this one sequence where he's with his girlfriend, and she's taking him to rehab. And on the way to rehab, literally, he tries to score some smack. or I don't even know what the term is. He just tries to score some drugs on the way, in front of the cameraman, in front of the director, Benjamin Ree, in front of his girlfriend, and on the way to get treated. And it just, you really see how down in the dumps he is in this movie. And I'm not going to say what else happens, but there's a lot of really compelling moments. And there's the way the movie's structured. There's a little bit of a manipulation of events, which amps up the drama and the manipulation. And I think it's really well done in the sense that it shows how people's perspectives can be really altered by not knowing the full picture of the actual painting of the person. So I think it's a really fantastic, and there's some really highly emotional moments in this movie.
Yep, it's good quality.
So yeah, The Painter and the Thief. That's our pick. I guess that's my pick, and half of my pick, half of Bruce's pick. May 22nd on VOD Virtual Cinemas and Hulu. Eric Holmes, what you got?
I saw a new movie out this week. It's a 2020 movie directed by Josh Trank. It's about a gangster, a little gangster known as Al Capone, Alfonso Capone, but they call him Fonzo because he's going fucking nuts and he doesn't need to know.
That's a lot. I mean, you're going to be asking for a fee next to Eric Holmes because that's a Tom Hardy fee that you're asking for with that voice. So, that is his voice, by the way. Tom Hardy's voice in Capone.
I need to bring up my friend Aaron again because he hates this movie. I am on the complete opposite side of this movie.
Well, do you see why he hates the movie, and do you see why a lot of people will hate Capone before you launch into your review?
I really want to. Normally I can. Normally there's a movie that I see where it's like, oh, not everyone's going to, like Mandy's a good example. Yep. My friend Doyle, for example, he was like, should I see Mandy? I'm like, no, you're going to hate Mandy. Capone's not a movie I would recommend to my sister because she doesn't like stuff like that. But I mean, just from movie lovers in general, I know there's people that hate this because I've seen them. I don't know why.
Whoa.
I really don't know why.
I gotta check it out.
Because it's obviously it's about the last year. It was actually I shouldn't say that. I do know why Aaron doesn't like it. Well, one of the reasons he doesn't because he doesn't like that it takes liberties on history.
Right.
Oh.
But it's about him. It's all from his perspective.
Sure.
And he's an unreliable narrator because he's got the whatever that disease is, the one that I'll probably have one day because I can't remember what I'm about to say right now. And his mind's going nuts. And we got the FBI, they're spying in on him. And they're like, oh, he's faking it. He's faking it. And meanwhile, we see him, we know he's going nuts. It's just about Al Capone going nuts and him just losing his faculties and just withering away into nothing in the last year or so of his life.
Co-stars Matt Dillon.
You got Matt Dillon, Tom Hardy, what's his name, and that other guy, and people.
Linda.
It stars a bunch
Linda
of actors.
Linda Cardellini from Scooby Doo. The original
there you go.
Scooby-Doo.
From Scooby Doo. One thing what this movie does a lot is, Capone, he'll be sitting there talking, and then you'll notice he'll kind of trail off. And then it gets to the point where it just goes into straight dream sequences. So you get to see like flashbacks, but they're not really flashbacks. It's like him kind of remembering the past, and he's kind of in the past. Here's one thing I noticed. I don't think it's a spoiler because I don't think anyone picked up on this, but it's something that if you're watching the movie and you pay attention, we'll call this value added, if that's fair.
Sure, fair.
Well, before I even bring it up, did you notice anything about his cigar?
No, not really. Nothing.
Okay, let me throw this out. Watch it again. You'll see when he has a cigar and his cigar's new and it's long, he's having a lucid conversation with someone. When his cigar is short, he's trying to kind of lose it a little bit. The cigar goes out and he's just... He switches from cigar to carrot. He's gone. What,
Really?
watch his cigar. His cigar is a visual cue of where he's at mentally.
Oh, very
Huh.
cool, Eric. Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know if that was intentional. It had to have been,
Had to have
because
been intentional.
like even when if you can see, with this pin will be the cigar. So he's talking with the long cigar. And he's lucid, and then you'll see that his brain's gone, and he faces the camera. So even though the cigar is long, it looks short on camera. So like even it's too deliberate to be an accident. And I kind of wish I would have
awesome.
watched this before you interviewed Josh Trank, so you could have asked him, so I know.
Well,
But
I may
just
have to
something to
cut.
pay attention to.
I may have to cut this audio up and actually send it to tweet it out and see if the Capone enthusiasts, if they agree with that theory. That's a very interesting
Yeah,
observation. I think that's probably true. I may
I
tweet it
could
out
Awesome.
because remember,
do it too.
I'm a social media. I was going to say a word that rhymes with s'more. So I will make sure to, right. So I'll make sure to figure out. I think I think that's correct. I think that's definitely correct. I think I know why people will hate Capone, because it's really, some people may think it's an off the rails performance by Tom Hardy. They really don't like this surreal, dreamlike thing about it. And to Eric's point, the unreliable narrator, our buddy Anderson Cowan, he hates unreliable narrators. I love
How can
unreliable
he hate
narrators.
unreliable narrators if his favorite film is A Clockwork Orange?
That's
That's 100% unreliable narrator.
100% correct. And I will make sure every single episode I'm going to bring Brian De Palma into the mix, because Brian De Palma's most famous quote is, and Louis, you love him too, very with a passion, because you love Raising Cain. God bless you. But he actually, De Palma says the camera lies 24 frames per second. So,
Yeah.
or whatever frame you want it to be, but he says 24 frames per second, 20, 30 years ago. But so, yeah, it's all, I think Capone is pure cinema. It's manipulates you.
Want to watch it?
Oh, there's going to be some cheats. There's a cheat with a character. They're saying, "Oh, why did you show a level where this person is in the scene, but this person might be actually part of Capone?" I go, dude, it's surreal cinema, and if you're taking it as a cradle to grave biopic, go watch a
Oh,
documentary on Capone. So
yeah, it's not even close to that.
Yeah,
yeah,
watch Road to
And
Perdition.
as far as the unreliable narrator goes, if there's a movie that actually earns it would be a movie like this. He
yeah.
can't be a reliable narrator because he doesn't have the mental faculties to be one.
There's
And we
no,
follow him. He's the main character. He's the one we follow. So it makes sense that what he's seeing and what he's experiencing may or may not be real.
Louis, you got something? You were saying something?
No, nothing to add to that.
Well, you're saying something now because you're gonna do the Cuban cinema. You're gonna wrap up on Cuban cinema. You're gonna give us a couple more picks.
Yes, but this is actually, I got a couple more after this, but the next one that I want to do is actually The Lost City. This is an Andy Garcia directed and starring film, but Dustin Hoffman's in this. I mean, this is an all-star cast of anybody and everybody that has any involvement in Cuban cinema. Yeah.
I remember Andy Garcia. This is his dream project, correct?
Yes.
This was okay.
Yes, because it revolves basically. It takes place in the 1950s. Again, back to the revolution between Batista and Castro and the different other factions. And this is about a nightclub owner in Cuba that is basically stuck in the middle of this revolution, and he's stuck trying to figure out what he's going to do because he's not political, which is a very rare thing in Cubans because we're all political and we're all one of those people that we scream at the top of our lungs about anything political, and we have extremely high opinions about things. And it's very rare that you find a Cuban that doesn't have an opinion about politics, and he's one of them. But it is just, this is probably one of the most beautifully shot films, and they were actually able to film some of it in Cuba, which was very interesting. And that just adds a whole layer to it because they don't just go to Havana and stuff like that. They actually go to Santiago. They go to La Oriente, which is like the real like out there boonies of Cuba, and it's beautiful, dude. Like there's so many moments. I remember my family and we went to watch this in theaters because it was that like much of a thing. And it was cool because we actually watched it in what they called an original cinema. And it was one of these like really small theaters that only had like 1 or 2 screens. And they used to play like retrospectives on Cuban films.
Wow.
And the theater is decked out to look like this Art Deco 1940s 50, like that Copacabana style interior and stuff like that. And it is gorgeous seeing that on the walls and then seeing this film actually projected on film. Oh, it is something to behold. And it's one of those experiences that you love to have because you heard all those stories throughout the years about things like that this nightclub owner was actually stolen. His property was stolen from him, and he was completely taken out of business because he had business with the Americans, and because of that, he was ostracized from all his friends, his family. Like he was blacklisted by the revolutionaries because of this. And it's just really fascinating. I connected with a lot of people in my family because a lot of them were blacklisted. I can't visit Cuba because my last name is actually blacklisted. My grandfather was the head land surveyor for Santiago, and during the revolution he basically said fuck you guys and burned the whole building down so they couldn't get the plans to any of the stuff that was going on in the city.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, he was held political prisoner for a couple of years, and he finally escaped. And yeah, we ended up in the United States after a while. But
So
yeah,
for the culture, this is a very big film. The Lost City is a huge film.
it's a huge thing. A lot of people, they gave it a lot of shit because of some inaccuracies in the film, but it's like you were saying with Capone, it's that unreliable narrator. It's shot in the point of view of this nightclub owner. So it's what
Wow.
he saw and how he perceived things and stuff like that. And I thought it was a beautiful film. Andy Garcia does a phenomenal job on this, and you could see the passion and the love in this. And it's just one of those that really, it's one of those really beautiful films. This one's actually streaming on Hoopla and Tubi currently.
Oh, very cool. The Lost City.
Yeah.
Written maybe. I wonder if it's written. It's directed and starring Andy Garcia with a pretty intense, pretty good cast, right? So
Yeah, it has a bunch of people. It has what's his name from Scarface. He changed his name, so I can't remember what his name was.
I was thinking, who else is in this?
Bill Murray's in it actually too.
Oh, Bill
I forgot
Murray.
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if Andy Garcia. Oh, I'm sorry, Bruce.
Was it the younger guy from Scarface, or who was it in Scarface?
No, it's the younger guy from Scarface, Stephen Bauer.
Oh, Stephen
Yeah.
Bauer.
Yeah.
Stephen Bauer.
Stephen Bauer,
yeah.
which he went by a different name back then. Esteban Echeverria. That was his original name. So that's why I was like, I can't remember his actual like stage name now.
Okay, The Lost City. Okay. You know, I always thought that Andy Garcia, even though he's had so much success as an actor, I still think he's one of the more underrated actors around because
He really is. And I want to go into a couple films that aren't, and this is quick lightning round.
Yeah, definitely.
Oscar Nunez, another Cuban actor, he is actually starring in The Proposal, which is streaming on IndieFlix. Fun, just chick flick, basically rom-com. It's really fun, and it also has what's her name from Golden Girls?
Rue McClanahan, Betty White.
The only one that's alive.
Rue McClanahan, Betty White.
Betty White. Betty White.
Okay, Betty White. Okay.
Betty White doing an Indian dance, which is hilarious, by the way. Eva Mendes as well. Holy Motors, for anybody out there, you gotta watch this. It's a must.
Okay,
and it's streaming free on Vudu and Pluto TV.
Holy Motors is a trip, you guys. Don't sleep on Holy Motors.
It is a fantastic movie. It's so
cool.
good.
It's
and
insane.
then the last lightning one I want to do is Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Start with Rosario Dawson. That's another Cuban actress. Amazon Prime. It's streaming. It's a fun, stupid stoner comedy. It's enjoyable if you like that stuff.
You know, if you like Kevin Smith, you're gonna enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and and it's as far as the view askew universe. I think it's right. It's really high up there. It's fan fiction,
Yeah.
wish fulfillment.
Self-made fan fiction, yeah.
Yeah, it's wish fulfillment stuff, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker, so I was fine with it.
It's another Legion M, actually. That's another Legion M production, like Mandy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like the Jalen Silent Bob reboot. Like it, it was fun, but he did Red State and Tusk, and I was like, oh, I'm loving this Kevin Smith. And then he just kind of like Yoga Hosers wasn't great, but then he goes back to Jane Silent Bob reboot, and I guess he's doing like Clerks 4 and Mallrats 17. It's like, dude, go back to your fucking weird shit. Just keep
weird, yeah.
I want to see
Tusk.
I want to see Moose Jaws so bad, and he keeps not doing it. It's like Jaws, but with the moose. That's what
it's like Jaws. Bruce, do you have any more couple of picks before we're out of here, and then I'm going to get back to Eric?
Yeah, I have one more. So I went to Greg's tried and true ending questions for a interview. And at the end of my interview, I asked Barbara, who was the artist, the painter and the thief. I asked her like what visual art and then also what movies had really changed her, impacted her greatly. And she said that for her, it was Stalker by Andrea Tarkovsky. I can never say the name,
Tarkovsky,
very, very
yeah.
famous. Yeah. And I had never gotten around to watching that movie. And it was one of those, famous classic cinema with a capital cinema. And I thought, well, I'm going to check out Stalker.
Well,
So
before you go on to Stalker, sorry, Bruce, there's a lot of people, I've been reading on film Twitter and all these things, that they always mention Stalker when they talk about movies that are bleeping overrated but then there are people who just go crazy for Stalker. So
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I can totally get that. I think that, so for example, for you, Greg, you might not like this because I could see it having some of the failings of something like Wings for Desire. So, but I think it has more to offer than Wings of Desire too, in some ways. So let's just put it this way. It's an incredibly stunning visual movie. I mean, visually it's impeccable. Unmeasured, like I haven't seen hardly anything that, like, with the compositions and with the way he shoots things, it's just insane. Story-wise, it's very heady, it's very poetic, it's very slow. This is a 2-hour and 40-minute movie, so you're in for the long haul in this movie.
How did you have time, Bruce? You have how do you have time to watch 2 hours and 40 minutes? I would have cheated and told people I saw it and watched 2 minutes.
No, I was like, I'm going to go do this. It was a perfect excuse to go watch it. So basic concept is this. This is 1979. You can get it on Criterion Channel, of course, Canopy, and I don't have those, so I just rented it. It was like, $3, but it was the Criterion version they have when you rent it. So basically...
Greg, hold on a second. Do you do that, and then that's why you review movies and give them 4 stars?
What do you mean?
You know what? I think, Lewis, it's Bruce's turn to talk. I don't know why Lewis completely, he just goes right into these conversations. Louise, I don't know. If you're trying to imply that I'm a paid shill for the studios and the indie IFCs, yes. So Bruce, you were saying
So listen to this basic concept, and then remember the movie Annihilation that came out a few years ago. There is a place called the Zone. There's a city that's outside of the Zone, and the Zone has basically been walled off, and everyone who goes in there never comes out. Supposedly a meteor or something fell in the Zone, and they don't know if it's an alien or what it is, but it has changed everything inside the Zone.
Huh. Yeah.
Wow.
So, anyway, the Stalker, there's basically 3 main characters mostly in the story. There's the Stalker, there's a writer, and there's a professor. And the Stalker is kind of like the guy that will take you into the Zone and show you your way, because it's supposed to be very dangerous. And they're just trying to go into the Zone and go to this place called the Room. And the Room is supposed to be where, if you get to the Room, all of your most highly held desire will come true. And that's kind of the basic concept of it. It takes a long time to get there, and it's a lot of talking and walking. I'll put it that way.
Oh my
But it's
gosh.
beautiful to look at and amazing to look at. But I could see most people being incredibly bored by it. So if I was to grade it, I would grade it 5 for visuals and probably 3 for story. So I'd
Okay.
probably fall somewhere in the middle of there. But I could easily see people hating it or loving it, as you said. Now, the only thing I would bring up on top of that, it is one of the most interesting movies historically in how it was made that I've ever heard of. And I went and did a little research after I watched it today. Something that's really interesting about it is this movie killed probably a good chunk of the cast.
So they didn't get to go to the room then? Is that what happened?
It was filmed, first of all, it was shot 3 times.
Yeah.
He had to shoot it the first time he shot it, and they were using a new kind of Kodak film they'd never used before and didn't know how to use in Russia, which is all that became used for things like The Shining and Star Wars. All these used as stock. So his footage was unusable. He basically shot most of the film. So he fired that DP. He got another guy who he kind of hated. He shot it again, most of the film, and he didn't like the results of that one. So he got rid of that guy. And then a year later, he goes back and he shot it again and finally got the results that he wanted.
Wow.
In the meantime, they were shooting this all around like old dilapidated like factories right next to like nuclear power plants. And they'd be standing for weeks waist high in water that was like coming out of these factories. And almost everybody died. Like a lot of the people died young from various illnesses, probably based on both radioactive and other kinds of toxic damage from this making this movie.
That's crazy.
He makes Werner Herzog look like the safest filmmaker in the world, basically.
Yeah, it was just crazy listening to all the stuff about it, like how damaging and crazy that movie was. And it, like I said, it is beautiful to look at. And the footage he has are in all these old dilapidated buildings that have like overgrown and just weird. I mean, you can look up footage from Stalker and you can see, or any Tarkovsky stuff, it's very visually impressive, but it's also really hard to get into as a story, as a narrative, you know. So I would say tread very lightly going into it. But coming from a painter, I could absolutely see the inspiration for her in both the look and also the themes, because she's really into like, you know, her works are a lot of them like making beautiful scenes of like death and like ugliness and things. Like you remember what her paintings are like.
Yeah, very.
So that kind of fits with this too, kind of the look of this movie. So that's what I would say if you're interested in diving into Stalker. I would say give it like 40 minutes. If you like what you're seeing, you'll like the rest of it. But if you're not into it, I could say you could bail and just look at the best of.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. Everyone tells me how great Tarkovsky is. I have what is that? Sergei Rublev or something. The
Andrei Rublev.
Andrei Rublev. Yeah, I still won't watch it because I remember watching Solaris over a couple of beers, and I remember
over a couple of years.
Oh yeah, no, just a couple of beers, maybe 3 or 4. It's this guy, a buddy of mine, former friend of mine. He used to. He was married at the time with kids. I still think he's married, but he was really into craft beer. So I went to his penthouse apartment with his wife and kid, and he showed me, before we went into the Tarkovsky Solaris thing, he showed me his wonderful collection of craft beers in his fridge. And, you know, I drank some and I got a little bit, inebriated, but it was good because that movie Solaris bored the living crap out of me. And I ended up like, I know, I'm sorry, Luis, because I know you like that esoteric stuff like I do, but there's sometimes I just jump off the boat. I ended up really enjoying the George Clooney version of Solaris way more, I think, as Luis.
Oh, yeah, hurt my soul.
Have you ever
seen? Hurts my soul.
Hurts your soul. Yeah. Oh, I hope that hurts your soul because you just outed me out as shill in this episode, which is the truth. Eric, have you seen any Tarkovsky at all?
I have Stalker and Solaris, the Criterion's on DVD, and both of them. Well, I started them. We'll leave it there. I did want to ask though, because I didn't know that about Stalker, that it was. Does that count as a remake? The movie was remade. Yeah, they made it. Destroyed. No, you said Stalker. You shot it 3 times. So
Oh,
like
right.
we're
yeah.
watching the second remake. No one, as far as you're saying, has seen the original
Yeah,
or
I
the
think
second
there have
remake.
been little leaks of little pieces of it. I think he used a couple tiny clips from the second filming in the final version, but most of it's all from the last version. Oh, there's one other thing I was going to mention. This is interesting. They said a lot of it's based on like a previous nuclear accident from like the 50s. They're kind of basing it kind of on that zone, you know.
Right.
After Chernobyl, the people that will take people into Chernobyl now, like when it's really deadly, are called stalkers. They've actually adopted that terminology now.
That's
So
hilarious.
it's really interesting historically.
I think I'll probably go back to it because when I bought the DVD, I saw Stalker. I was thinking because I just saw M and I think Experiment Terror, like those type of movies. I thought that's what Stalker was, and I was kind of in that headspace. And then I put it in. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is. It's not getting to the point. I just turned it out. I never went back to it. But you're saying that it's kind of like they're going. The movie you're describing. Maybe if I was in that headspace, I'd be more interested in it. And now I'm kind of curious to go back and give it another shot.
Yeah, if you go into the mindset that it's that kind of a non-story movie and you can just go with that vibe, then you could really enjoy it. But go in and warm, you know.
Yeah,
I was
I was all in on a serial killer movie, so and it didn't seem like that at all.
It is not.
Well, before we go, we're gonna do a lightning round. Does any of you guys have one? I have one more quick pick. Does anyone else have any quick pick?
I got one too.
Okay, I'm gonna start with my quick pick first. Out on digital and VOD on May 22nd. I don't know if you guys have heard of this actor, Eric. I'm thinking you might have seen a couple of his films. I'm guessing here. His name is Craig Fairbrass. Okay, he was seen recently in Avengement. I think Avengement is streaming on Netflix. That's a stars Scott Adkins. Very, very good movie.
Oh, yeah, I know who he is.
That was a good one.
Yeah, did you see Avengement, Eric?
Year, right?
Yeah.
No, I know, but if Scott Adkins is in it, I will be seeing that shortly. I love Scott Adkins.
Okay, well, Eric, if you love Scott Adkins, then his favorite film from his filmography is Avengement, and it's streaming right now on Netflix. So in Avengement, Craig Fairbrass plays the brother of Scott Adkins in the film, and it's about dueling brothers. Scott Adkins plays, I think, the guy he escapes prison, and eventually he has retribution against his older brother, played by Craig Fairbrass. Okay, and Louis, you like that movie?
I liked it. This was my favorite action movie of 2019. So yeah,
Whoa.
It definitely was good.
Huge. I'm so glad you said that, because this movie, Bruce, it's streaming right now, and it's one of those movies that when it came out, because it's a Scott Adkins movie, it goes right to the Scott Adkins fans, but it actually went over and above and beyond that. And it's actually on a different level. It has a universal appeal. Now, Craig Fairbrass, who plays the brother in Avengement, he's the lead actor and villain, and it's still the same kind of construct where he plays this guy. He just released from prison. All he wants to do is lead a normal life. We've heard this before.
Man on fire.
Yeah, a million times before. But the cool thing is, as you know, Louis, Craig Fairbrass, he's a big guy. He has a really interesting presence about him. I'm thinking of guys like Robert Mitchum, guys just really big, imposing, but also charismatic dudes. You just really believe him. So you believe that this guy just came out of prison. You believe he's trying to get his life straightened out. Unfortunately, his younger brother is an idiot. He's a drug addict. That does not make him an idiot. Okay, that just makes him a human being. But on top of being a drug addict, the bar that they own together, it's in debt. He's siphoning off all the money just for his drug habit, and he's in debt to the wrong people. So when Craig Fairbrass's character gets out of jail, he has a stack of money hidden away. Ultimately, he has to give that money away to the bad guys, but that's just not the end. It's just a seeming pit of cleaning his brother's shit up. So that's what Villain is about. The villain is Craig Fairbrass, but he's not really a villain. He has to become a villain again to pay off all the debts that his brother has incurred. Again, digital and VOD May 22nd. Fairbrass is very, very good in this movie. There are action moments. Fairbrass's body of work, I mean, early on he has Cliffhanger as one of his credits with Sly Stallone. he does these Rise of the Foot Soldier films, which I haven't
Yeah.
really seen. They're violent,
Never
right?
seen him.
Yeah, but they're really violent films. Okay, so this is sort of a step in the more of an actorly type direction for him, and it's really emotionally charged film, really well done drama. So I ended up really enjoying this. I'm giving this movie 4 stars. 4 stars, folks. And I honestly, my 4 stars mean nothing. They do, but honestly, I enjoyed personally on a personal level. I really enjoyed Villain. 4 stars, digital VOD. Craig Fairbrass also said that I asked him one of the best question ever he's been asked in his life. I don't know if that might have tailored my ultimate rating for Villain. Maybe, maybe not. I'm like Capone. Sometimes I think things are real. Sometimes I think things are illusion. So who knows? Maybe I'm just all over the place like The Painter and the Thief. A lot of shifting perspectives. Louis, what is your pick?
The last one that I want to go over is another music doc, and it's actually more like a musical performance. It's called Havana Street Party Presents Orishas, and this is actually on HBO. This is actually a full concert, and the band is actually called Orishas, which is basically, for anybody that doesn't know, Santeria is basically the major religion of Cuba and Brazil and many other places. But it's basically grabbing the Catholic God, what do you call it? The Catholic, what are they called? Saints. And putting them into perspective as gods. So basically the Afro-Cubans, they weren't able to practice their own religion. So what they did is they intermingled the Catholic religion with the Afro religion by superplacing the what do you call it, the Catholic saints with their gods. So that's why you see like the what do you call it, Virgin Mary is constantly held up as like basically a god when she's not really a god. It represents the highest god in Afro-Cuban beliefs in Santeria. And Orishas is the name of the original name of gods in what do you call it, Santeria or Palo. And it's actually very fascinating religion. But this band, it's cool because they mix in that Afro-Cuban music that we were talking about at the beginning, and they mix in modern music, the drum and bass in the background, the DJ in the background, that mixture with the rap music in the front. As like they're talking, they actually rap. So it mixes in all these different aspects of Cuba, modern and what do you call it, classic. And it's really cool. I actually added a bunch of songs from them as soon as I saw this stock a couple years ago, and I was like, yes, this is really good. And it's an enjoyable, quick watch.
What's the name of the film again?
It is Havana Street Party Presents Orishas.
Presents Orishas. Okay,
Yeah.
very cool. Quick question. Have you ever seen, everyone has always told me to go see I Am Cuba. Have you guys ever seen I Am Cuba?
No, never seen that.
Yeah, that's a movie that I've been meaning to, a lot of the cinephiles who are smarter than me, that I think they call it Yo Soy Cuba, but I Am Cuba, supposedly it's a really remarkable film. It says 4 vignettes about the lives of the Cuban people set during the pre-revolutionary era. So I Am Cuba, just Louis, maybe that's something that we can one of us will check out. I think I might check that out, as well as your picks. Louis, Bruce, Eric, leaving me hanging? Anything? You're good?
All I've got is just a quick, it's still good. I watched it again recently. My teenage son and I sat down and we took in Return of the Living Dead this week. And it's still an awesome movie. I still contend it's the most fun and interesting zombie movie ever made. But that's just me, I guess. And we watched that and it was still so much fun.
Cool. Eric Holmes, anything you want to say before we're out of here?
Yeah, I got one last one. It's a 1983 movie by Mel Damsky. Sorry, it's called Yellowbeard. It's anyone see Yellowbeard?
No,
I've seen it in the theater.
In the theater, you're a lucky man. It's got the Monty Python crew. It's got Cheech and Chong. It's got the Mel Brooks crew. It's got everyone from that time. I could explain the story, but it's a pure comedy. how do you, how do you explain, I don't know, the meaning of life? That you
Right.
can. It's just a bunch of it's barely a story just to hang a bunch of jokes on, and the jokes are hilarious. Maybe not for this time, because Yellowbeard's about a pirate and there are a bunch of rape jokes in it and a bunch of very crass jokes.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's hilarious, but I could see where someone today would watch it and maybe not be, if you're one of those, if you're in that headspace where you don't
Sure.
like really, really dark and obscene humor, Yellowbeard will not be up your alley. But
Pull
I
the
look
stick
here.
out.
Yeah, I look here on the IMDb. They say plot keywords: musket, pirate, treasure, piracy, breasts.
well, just to give you an idea, one of the jokes is, what the fuck's her name? Madeline Kahn.
Oh
She
yeah, love her.
plays Yellowbeard's ex, and she goes to meet Yellowbeard in prison. She's like, "Remember when we was having a little cuddle?" And he responds, "I was raping you, if that's what you mean." It's like, maybe half cuddle, half rape. That, I mean,
Wow.
if
See,
that's
I was-
that's the
joke.
space we're in if you're watching Yellowbeard.
You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. It depends
Exactly.
on your. I think I'm one of those people who's gonna love it.
This is an example, unlike Capone. If you hate Yellowbeard, I get it. I do.
You do
I
okay.
still think it's hilarious.
All right, guys. That's another episode. Louis, you want to say something about your whole podcast universe before we're out of here?
Sure. Just check us out on manbitesfilm.com. You can see everything on there.
Bruce Purkey, he does a several times a week on his YouTube channel, Rustomire, Rustomire. You do some really astute video reviews, right, Bruce?
If you say so.
I say so. I say so. And Eric Holmes, I will never ever make fun of your music taste again, because I wish my dream is, when our podcast, I want Hardline to be part of the Mainline. I want the Hardline music. I want a hard out. No, sorry, no disrespect to your son, Bruce. We're gonna have his music too, but we're talking about Hardline music to out everything. There's a song they do called "Life's a Bitch." I'm actually walking in my neighborhood of Calabasas, and I strained my calf. And the only thing that got me back home in one friggin' piece, I'm not really in one piece right now, was listening to Hardline rock out to "Life's a Bitch," because you know what? Life really is a bitch. I know I don't swear, but I can use the B word. And my calf was straining. And if it wasn't for the music of Hardline and the memory that the memory of Eric Holmes' review of Rapid Fire, I would not have made it home. So folks, Hardline, rate and review Movie Mainline. Please give us, how many stars should they give us, Louis?
It
4.
was 5.
5 stars. 5-star us. Rate, review our podcast. Support us. And most of all, we want to support you guys. We want to hear what your own movie picks are, because if you give us some picks, we're definitely going to mention your name, your recommendations for our
Well, Greg,
Steven
you could
shows.
give us 4 stars because you're 4-star Greg. So that definitely.
We're going to cut that out. Please, Louis, cut that out. Actually, don't cut that out. That was very funny. I'm a little bit hurt now. My calf is really straining. We will see you guys next week with some more good Movie Mainline stuff. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys next week.